Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Naga Munchetty and Charlie State.
Our headlines today. Junior doctors say there'll be no further strikes whilst they enter pay talks with the government. Protesters have clashed with police once again in central Paris over the French government's pension reforms. A deal to allow Ukraine to export grain by sea is due to expire today, and it's uncertain whether Moscow and Kyiv can agree terms to extend it.
Good morning. It's Saturday, March the 18th. Our main story this morning. President Biden has said Vladimir Putin has clearly committed war crimes after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for the Russian president.
The ICC alleges he's responsible for criminal acts and failing to use his presidential powers to stop children being deported from Ukraine to Russia. Our correspondent Helena Wilkinson has more. Comic relief bosses have praised the generosity of the British public after this year's Red Nose Day raised more than £30 million.
Most of the money, which will help UK charities, some of the world's poorest people, was donated during a 3-hour programme of spoof songs and sketches on BBC One last night. Graham Satchell was watching. So what about that all-important total? It did go up after the main programme.
Curtis and the CEO of Comic Relief too.
Let's see, 10 minutes past 6. It's a Saturday. Don't know what you're up to, but you want to know about the weather, Louise. 13 minutes past 6 time now. A breakthrough was made this week in the long-running nurses' pay dispute after unions suspended strikes while they consider a new pay offer.
Now, even if the deal is accepted, it's unlikely to immediately solve the problem of recruiting people to the profession and keeping hold of them. David Lumb has more. We'll find out more about that story with the BBC Money Box reporter Dan Whitworth at 8:15. It's remarkable, actually, how that scam kind of evolved and the efforts that were put in to get that gentleman's money back. So it's going to be really interesting hearing from Dan later. I love inventions and, like, technology, and this is one I understand, and I think it's a really useful one. So experts at Nottingham Trent University have been looking at ways to prevent people from falling or to monitor people who are at risk of falling, because especially the elderly, when they fall, it can be just a step towards becoming more and more ill because you obviously lose mobility and health. So they've invented a sock, right? Say there's an elderly
someone living
person
on their own, for example.
Exactly. Or if there's an elderly person in a care home, whatever, you can monitor them. And so it's really quickly communicated, so it prevents them. So if they're having a near fall or just having a bit of a wobble, it kind of stops, it prevents the worst fall coming.
I suppose the danger could be that any untoward movement that is not a calamity would also trigger a situation.
If you're kind of elderly or frail anyway and not likely to be jumping around or whatever normally. So I just thought that was a really useful invention.
Sounds like good technology.
Really simple.
I just want to pick out, if I may, a couple of these quotes. This is Sam Neill, who has been talking about his cancer diagnosis. But this quote from him, I think, is terrific, isn't it? I'm not afraid to... Can you see this here? This is just right here in the middle of the page. And it's just one of these great... Looking about the life he leads. He lives in New Zealand now on a farm. Oh, yeah, and I was just going to... Some of the things he talks about, on his farm in New Zealand, he's got a lot of animals. Obviously, he has animals on the farm. Many of them named after actors, friends of his. So he has Laura Dern, who is a chicken. He has Michael Fassbender, who's a rooster, and Kylie Minogue is a duck, and Helena Bonham Carter is a cow. So he's named a whole bunch of his animals.
If you didn't have the sentence before and after explaining that, and we just kind of clipped you just abusing all these actors, calling them names, that's what it sounded like.
Well, I'm not sure that... Is there offence in being called a chicken? I suppose it's not good. Anyway, Michael Fassbender, the rooster...
I think Helena Bonham Carter would like to be called a cow.
I suspect she knows by now. They go back a long way, and I think she can probably deal with it.
She can cope with it.
Anyway, you know, Sam Neill's obviously going through quite a bit at the moment, and it sounds like they've done an interview, basically, because he's got this book out, and it sounds like a really interesting read. That is some of the lighter stuff. He talks quite a bit about his own situation, how it's made him more philosophical about life.
Jane, good morning.